Knows the recount situation in Florida all too well. Former White House Press Secretary for Bush 43, Ari Fleischer. Also with me, former Pennsylvania Congressman Jason Altmaier. Ari, first to you. Why in the world are we back here?
Yeah, this gives me the heebie-jeebies, doesn't it? Yeah. We're back here because Broward County has a tradition, and you're watching this tradition come into play. And what bothers me so much about the nation going through this again is the entire integrity of our democracy rests on elections that are meaningful and accepted. And you can't, after the ninth inning is played, the game is over, and one team wins, say, I've unilaterally decided we're going to go into extra innings and we're counting the runs differently. That appears to be what's happening in Broward.
Jason, how troubling is it that some of these ballots, we have no idea where they've been since Tuesday? There's been no chain of possession. I know you're a Democrat, but you're a fair one. You're a good guy. How does that hit you in terms of just an objective view? Does that make you a little squeamish that we don't know where these ballots have been?
There's no question that Broward County has a well-deserved reputation for infamous election day activities, and I don't mean anything criminal. The Florida Department of Law Enforcement has looked into this. I just think it's an incredible lack of communication, and for all the confrontation, for all the lack of communication, I think everyone should agree we should count every vote. And as I understand it, this process, although it's taking longer than it should, is the normal process. The votes that came in up until the end of the early voting, they were counted. And that's what was reported by 7:30 on election night. Then the votes that they're counting now, and it is taking longer than it should, and they'll have to account for that, are the provisionals and the absentee ballots that came in subsequent to that up until Tuesday, election day. Under state law, those ballots have to be counted by tomorrow at noon. It appears they're going to reach that deadline. So I don't think anything mysterious or criminal has happened. It's just unfortunate that you have three races in Florida, it looks like, that effectively were fought to a tie. And when you have 8 million votes count within the statistical margin of error of basically a tie, it gets ugly and it's messy and it's not fun to watch, but unfortunately that seems to happen more often than not because Florida is such a divided state.
But Ari, does that pass the smell test? I mean, all the other counties, including the ones hit by a hurricane, were able to get their votes counted on time. Broward County can't, and we don't know where those ballots were. There was one box that a teacher found just in a storage area. Who had possession of that? How long was it sitting there unattended?
That's exactly the point, Governor. If you have to have faith in the process, and when something goes wrong, and things do go wrong, then there has to be a valid explanation, and no valid explanation has been given. Nobody knows what is going on in Broward, why they were late, what ballots were found, why they were found late, why they were counted late. You just keep getting the additional votes, keep going and breaking for the Democrats. Now, maybe in a Democratic county you can say votes would normally break for a Democrat, but by what percentage? How come? These are the explanations. This is called transparency. And when you have one powerful commissioner in charge of the elections with a history of mischief in the elections and gotten in trouble legally for destroying ballots previously, you have to scratch your head and say, is this on the up and up? And that's the problem. It's all moving in one direction, and it's not just within the statistical margin of error. Tens of thousands of votes have been moving. That's the problem.
And Jason, we've heard for 2 years, Russia, Russia, Russia. They're interfering with the election. They're mucking it up and making it where we don't know really who should have won. How do you not blame for Republicans who want to say Broward, 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 that they've messed it up?
Look, both Republicans and Democrats are incredibly frustrated with what's happened in Broward because, as Ari just said, this is a repeated incident. This is circumstances that seem to happen every election there, and that's unfortunate, and there needs to be a review of what happened and probably a change made at the top in that county. But I think Governor Scott and Congressman DeSantis are still going to prevail. And it's unlikely you're going to see a 15,000 vote margin overturned in a hand recount. So at that point, they should be happy that every vote is counted. Again, it was messy, it wasn't handled in the way it should, it wasn't communicated properly, but in the end, in order to have a valid outcome of the election, you have to count every vote, and that's what's happening.
Well, thank you both.